Good afternoon. Today, as always, very interesting information. As of now, COVID-19 is moving through the world and the worldwide economy gives off an impression of being crumbling. This, undeniably, is one of those seasons of distress, a period when our lives are overturned and loaded up with uncertainty. Top 5 crazy conspiracy theories surrounding the Chinese coronavirus. But as an ever-increasing number of individuals acclimate to life in isolate, we are beginning what's turning into a worldwide social investigation. Thoughts that we just discussed in the prior years are being placed without hesitation on a gigantic scale. This will be troublesome time, but on the other hand it's setting off to the sparkle of some mind-boggling changes. 1. Before COVID-19, just 7% of American specialists had the choice to telecommute. That doesn't imply that 7% were telecommuting, it just implies that 93% of Americans were informed that it could never be an option. Today, telecommuting is a need. There are no hard measurements on what number of individuals are working remotely around the globe. However, the organization Cisco has said that, in China, their video conferencing programming has been considering 22 to be as a lot of traffic as it did before the outbreak. The world is occupied with a worldwide work-from-home test, and we're going to see direct exactly how supportable it is. There as of now concentrates on this, and the outcomes are sure. One found that individuals telecommuting have 16.8 more days worth of efficiency a year. Those contemplates have consistently been out there, yet in the event that businesses see the outcomes direct for themselves, there will be no denying that letting individuals keep telecommuting after the pandemic is over won't send them out of business, and that could be mind-blowing for our life fulfillment. The normal drive to work has expanded by 20 minutes over the previous decade, and specialists state that those 20 minutes influence work fulfillment as much as a 19% cut in pay. 2. A few months ago, universal basic income seemed like a pipe dream. The idea of sending every person in a country a monthly check, even if they don't go to work, was starting to crop up on the odd campaign trail, but in most countries, it didn't sound like anything we'd see anytime soon. But for the next few months, it's going to be a reality. The United Kingdom has committed to paying 80% of its workers' salaries, while Denmark has offered to pay upward to 90%. And even the United States is planning on sending a $1,200 check to almost every adult American. None of these plans are exactly the same as universal basic income, but they're close. They're going to effectively be dry test runs on how these policies really affect society. It's too early to say what the result is going to be. Finland tried universal basic income in 2017 and 2018 and concluded that it left people happy but jobless, which might be what we find in the rest of the world as well. But one way or another, these debates are going to be a lot less theoretical when the pandemic is over. 3. One of the sectors COVID-19 has hit the hardest is manufacturing. Anyone working in a factory is an incredibly tough spot. Working remotely isn't an option when you work with your hands, but for some factories, neither is staying home. But for so-called lights-out factories that are operated entirely by robots, a disease isn't even a problem. Companies that use more automation are already doing better than those that rely on cramming human workers into a tightly packed factory. And companies are starting to notice. Kaja Robotics, for example, has said that they've seen a 25% increase in inquiries in the past 30 days alone. We can expect a lot of manufacturing companies to turn to automation to survive, and a lot of other companies 2. China has already started replacing delivery drivers with drones, and they're reporting that they're faster and safer than human workers. They've even experimented with robotic hospitals, where machines take your temperature, deliver your meals, and disinfect your room to keep humans from having to come into contact with someone carrying a disease. By the time this pandemic is over, your job just might have been filled by a robot. 4. Schools are shutting down in nearly every country that's seen an outbreak of COVID-19, and that's pushing parents and teachers into a whole new era of education. For the next few months, online learning is going to be the norm. No matter how tech-savvy your teacher is, they're going to have to learn how to make education digital, based on early reactions. It's unlikely that we'll see widespread adoption of online education when this is over. Feedback from teachers, so far, has been almost universally negative. The major problem is that online learning compounds disadvantages. Children whose parents don't have time to push them on their education fall further behind, while those who can't afford internet access are almost completely excluded. Still, every teacher in the world is getting a crash course in 21st century learning. They're guaranteed to come back with ideas that'll transform how our kids learn, at least for the kids that come back. A lot of parents are turning to homeschooling. And since homeschooled kids typically score higher on standardized tests than kids in public schools, there's a good chance that a lot of those parents will decide to stick with it. 5. There are no libertarians in a pandemic. Meghan McCain recently said, whether that's a good thing or not is up to debate, but good or bad, there's a lot of reason to believe that it's true. Around the world, people have been embracing big government ever since COVID-19 began to spread. Socialist policies are being implemented all around the world, even in countries led by conservative and libertarian leaders. The US government is planning on spending $1 trillion fighting COVID-19, while the United Kingdom's Boris Johnson has said that there's no ceiling to how much they'll spend. Big government's making a comeback, and in some places, it's in pretty extreme ways. The Israeli government has started using its people's cell phone location data to identify everyone who has come in contact with an infected patient. If you've been near them, you'll get a text telling you to quarantine yourself immediately. McCain's being hyperbolic, of course. There are still libertarians, but their voices are being muted. And even if hands-off government comes back in fashion when this is over, there are bound to be a few bills passed that, before COVID-19, never would have made it through. Subscribe to the channel and click on the bell. See you soon, and don't be sick.